The purpose of Wealth Talk is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you on the subject of building your wealth. WealthBuilders recommends you should always take independent financial, tax, or legal advice before making any decisions around your finances.
Welcome to episode 230 of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for WealthBuilders, joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan. Hello, Kevin.
Hi, Chris. Good to be with you again, sir. Nice to see you.
Feeling refreshed after your break?
Yes, had a little golf trip. Really enjoyed that. Nice to have a break because we had a pretty big launch, didn't we, in January? So, good. So refreshed, recharged and ready to go.
Excellent stuff. Okay, I'm talking about ready to go. We've got a supercharged guest with us today, and it's the return of Terry Blackburn. And Terry's been busy over the last couple of years since he last appeared on Wealth Talk. So lots to talk about today. But before we talk to Terry, we've got the next webinar coming up, Kevin, in a couple of weeks' time. This time, we're talking all things pension, and we're going to be covering the SSAS pension as well. So the title of our next webinar is Unlocking a New Source of Funding for Your Properties or Business.
Big one, that one. And interestingly enough, I've spoken to Terry about this, where he's a young man in his 30s, and he was like, pension? I can't be bothered with that. And that's right, because most people kind of consign their pension to a box that says, do not disturb till 65. But pensions can be combined, collaborated, and turned into a business. And that's really essentially what a SSAS is. Turns your pension into your business, not somebody else's. And if you've got a property business, it can help you buy more property. And if you've got a conventional business, it can help you support that. If you need support, help you scale that if you're trying to grow.
So if you'd like to attend that, it's absolutely free. We're doing 2 sessions, lunchtime and evening, and it's Wednesday, the 21st of February. Head to wealthbuilders.co.uk and you'll see the details right there and you can click and register. Okay, so today really we're talking about how to achieve more in the same amount of time. So lots of productivity tips from Terry Blackburn, and there's a site visit also coming up with Terry on the 6th of March, close to area you know well, Kevin.
Well, yeah, he's up in the northeast, and obviously an area that people know now is my kind of place of schooling and where I was raised. And near Barnard Castle, actually, so nice part of the world. Well, he'll tell you who story himself, but super building, which is perfect if someone's looking at a SSAS. You can buy a building like that in a pension, or you can buy it conventionally. And in fact, on the day, he's going to talk about how he did that and all the different ways that he used very creative finance to do that.
Absolutely. So more details we'll share after the interview with Terry. And also Terry's going to be sharing some productivity tips and also how he's sharing his wisdom and knowledge all around business and finance with his children. He's got 4 children, so lots of lessons to share there as well. So let's dive in and let's listen to our conversation today with Terry Blackburn. Terry, welcome back to Wealth Talk today. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having us back. How are you?
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, I'm good. I'm really good. Thank you, Terry. And we were just chatting, weren't we? The last time you appeared on Wealth Talk, can you believe it? It was November 2021, right in the thick of COVID. I think a fair bit's happened since then, right?
Crazy. I can't believe it was that long ago. But when you reflect on that, it seems like it was an age ago, doesn't it? And so much has happened. But that just shows how quick time goes, right? And how you've got to make the most of it while you've got it, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that's at the heart of our discussion today, isn't it? It's about making the most of your time, as you say, but also how do you balance all the things that are going on? And when someone's trying to build wealth, they're also managing a family and in some cases a day job as well, then it can become overwhelming. And you've managed to find this balance, and you seem to be performing at a pretty high level, Terry. And we're going to hear about all of the things you're up to. But let's just rewind back. Let's look at the last 2-3 years. When we last spoke on the podcast, Terry, you were running Bespoke, your company. Tell us what's happened with that since.
Yeah, so when you said 2021, it is crazy thinking how much has changed, certainly in my life since then. So there's lots to talk about, but sort of the key things, I suppose. So did sell the business. I don't know if I was in talks, or I shared if I was in talks with the business sale, but that was done in June/July 22. I had another baby. So that's 4 children now since the last podcast. Sold shares in another business, set up new businesses, moved house, So I sold the business and had a baby and moved house all within a kind of 6-week period, which was very stressful. They're some of the 3 most stressful life events I think you can go through. And I just, not through intention, but it all kind of happened at the same time. I set up a construction business, a letting agency, sold my shares in the glamping business. I don't even know if we wouldn't have built the glamping business out when we last spoke. I don't even know if I'd acquired the land by then. I can't quite recall. I don't know. It was, so a lot has happened, man.
Yeah, I think it was all really, really early stages back then. Obviously, you were kind of involved in property, but not quite to the extent that you are now. I'll just quickly mention, because we're actually coming up to see you, aren't we? So we've organised a WealthBuilders event to come and look at one of your properties. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, so that's another business and property that I've acquired since we last spoke. So that is a 17-bedroom hotel. It's got 2 houses on the land. It's got some land at the back which got planning for an extension of the hotel, 10-bedroom extension, plus 2 5-bed houses. It's got a bar, restaurant, a snug area, a games room. It's 450 years old. Charles Dickens wrote a book there. It's a really, really interesting project and property. If anybody comes along, I think we're going to do the event on the 6th of March, I believe. If you come along, you'll see it. You just kind of... I always try and not use emotion when I buy properties, but I must admit, when I viewed this property, I was like, oh my God, this property just emotionally gets you, because it's such a nice building. If you like sort of that stuff anyway, all stone built, really quirky. I purchased it and refinanced it in quite a creative way, which I'm going to share on in the tour. But great little business. It was ran poorly by the old owners. So I've kind of whipped it into shape, condensed a lot of things, streamlined things, automated things, and it's making some good profit now. It's a fantastic business and project. So it's all going on.
Yeah. Looking forward to coming up and seeing you, and you'll show us around, and then we'll sit down and we'll talk through some of the numbers and find out exactly how you structured that, as you say. And that'll be a really, really good site visit. So we'll be sharing more details of how you can join us on that. I'm curious as well, with the sale of that business, Terry, people talk about selling a business and going to have the freedom, going to have the money, but there's some things perhaps that you don't appreciate until you're actually in that moment afterwards, looking back. Tell us, what was that like for you? What were some of the learnings perhaps from that?
Yeah, I mean, I've read books on people selling businesses and people lose themselves a little bit. And I thought that won't happen to me. I honestly thought selling a business and getting a sum of money like that, I thought it was utopia. You've made it, you can sit back, you can chill, retire and all this stuff. And that couldn't be further from what I experienced anyway. So I always had, for the 9 years I ran that business, I had a sales meeting every Monday, 10 o'clock, called it Motivational Mondays. So I ran the sales meeting, buzzed everybody up, J'd them all up. And the first Monday after the sale, I was like, this is a bit strange. I haven't got my Monday meeting. The second Monday, I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Have I done the right thing? I've lost a bit of my identity and my structure. And I did actually love doing it. I love speaking. I love doing sales training and motivating people. So from at that point, I was like, have I done the right thing? Should I have done this? But it's too late at that point, of course. So I experienced it. It's quite a strange feeling. Certainly, if bear in mind, I had lots of other businesses at this point as well. So it wasn't like it was my own thing, my only thing. I can imagine if that's your only business and you sell it, that must be quite tough. Because it was part of my identity, it was part of who I was, and it was a big part of my life. And then when it's kind of stripped away, even though I've got a large sum of money, I can't really explain it any more than that. It's just a real strange feeling. And the only way I sort of got round that, again, I started to read, started to listen to podcasts, read books, all of that on people who've experienced something similar. And all of the content I consumed were kind of saying, you've got to reinvent yourself. You've got to find your next thing. And effectively, I did have to reinvent myself a little bit. So that's kind of why I've threw myself into other businesses, doing more of the coaching and other things that I'm doing. It kind of kept us entertained, you could say. But yeah, strange, man. It's strange. I don't any of the listeners, if they've sold a business, they might be able to relate. But it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm still glad I done it and it was the right thing. But strange.
I think alongside that as well is that goal of achieving financial independence. It's something that people aspire to, and you're chasing it. And then one day you actually go, I'm there, right? I've actually got enough money coming in from these different assets now. And what do I do next? What's the next target? What's the next goal? It's hard to sort of prepare for it, isn't it?
Definitely. And it's not normally as good as you think it's going to be, or it's not often what you think is going to happen. It's not often that, because, I'm 35, just turned, and I couldn't retire at 35. Like, I need something. And I did find out a lot about myself during that period. When I was in the business, I thought, I can't wait to get out, new start, and, I won't miss any of this. But I've learned that I actually did miss. I like interacting with people. I wouldn't set up another business on that scale in that industry again. I know that much. But I do like to be around people. I do like to help people in sales training, because I was training the sales guys how to sell and make more money. That's the same as kind of mentoring. So that's kind of what I realized that I missed, hence why I threw myself into it. I'm glad I've done it, and I'm in a good place. I did reinvest majority of the money straight away, because that's just, I need to keep going. But yeah, really strange experience.
So some people would have sat back and said, okay, I'll just kick back and enjoy life for a little bit. But that's not your style, is it, Terry? So as you say, you're straight back on the horse. You talked about the glamping business. You've got construction business, letting agents now. We just talked about the hotel. So some people might be thinking, well, just how do you manage all this? Not to mention, obviously, your partner, Louise, and 4 children as well. So let's talk about how you manage your time, Terry. What are some of the secrets to making sure that you're present in all of these different areas?
There's definitely ways, I believe, that people can do this, and certainly maybe improve upon what they're doing now in terms of efficiency and productivity. What I do personally, some sort of key points, I suppose. Google Calendar is massive. No hardback diaries. It needs to be digital. It needs to be accessible on every device. Phones, laptops, iPads. It needs to be on all of them. It's a real basic starting point. You need to be really structured with your time. So I always make sure that I do something for my mind and something for my body every day. So that doesn't mean I don't do 2 hours in the gym every day. I generally do every other day I go to the gym, and then I read or listen to something every day to keep my mind and my body sharp. Because I believe that helps with productivity and efficiency, because if you're sluggish and tired, you need a couple of coffees to warm your brain up. You're missing a couple of hours a day. By the time you're getting into a good place efficiency-wise, you've missed 2 hours, sometimes longer. So I believe a sort of productivity hack would definitely be keeping fit and keeping your mind right as well. Every morning I do things like I write down my goals, I plan for the day, use to-do lists, I'll write my gratitude down, and I use one of these planners. Anyone who can see on the camera, it's called This Is My Era Planner. It's like a 90-day, 12-week planner. So I use those every day. So you set goals and key achievements for each day. That really keeps us on track. And I think a big thing is turning notifications off on your phone for things like social media, things like emails if you can. When you're at work, you're at work. So when you're at work, you're not on the phone to your partner. You're not on the phone to the kids. You're not messaging your mates about boxing or something. When you're at work, you're at work. And I am very like that. When I'm at work and I've got my businesses are open effectively, the time I'm working, I'm at work. It's structured. I don't do long meetings. I don't do these hour-long Zoom meetings when you don't need to. A lot of meetings can be condensed to 15 or 30 minutes. If you just cut out the chit-chat, sometimes that you're saving 10, 15 minutes a meeting. If you're doing 10 meetings a day, that's a decent saving of time. So I think being strict with your time, being disciplined, planning, keeping your body right, keeping your mind right, prioritize as well. So when you're doing a to-do list, a lot of people fall into this trap. They'll do a to-do list and they'll have 20 things on there. A simple way to become more productive and effective with that is simply prioritize those tasks into the most profitable or the most important. Starting with number 1, and then the second most profitable and important, third most profitable and important, and working down your to-do list like that. Because some people have got a to-do list, some really important things on there, but they end up doing the things that aren't really important or productive because they're easier. So having a to-do list is one thing, but then working down in a priority list is another. always make time for the kids. I always make time for my missus. So, for example, I don't work past 5 o'clock. So Monday to Friday, I don't work weekends. I haven't for a long time. Date night every Tuesday. So tonight, we're recording this on a Tuesday. So 5, 6 o'clock, phone will be off and out the way. And don't get us wrong, the odd week, obviously, we don't do it because things crop up. But majority of the time I do that. I pick the kids up most days at 3-ish, when I'm home, that is. So it can all be done. Like, to summarise those points, it can be done. I've got 4 kids and businesses all over the place and loads of staff. You know, it can be done all at the same time, but you've got to be disciplined and strict with your time. There's no way you can do it if you're here, there and everywhere. If you haven't got a PA or a VA, if you haven't got key team members helping you with key areas, you just can't. You can't do it all by yourself.
You've talked about the systems there, leveraging technology, and you can't, I guess, do this without team as well. So having good team members around you, and that can be a challenge, can't it? Because I often say in business, you know, one of the hardest things is managing the people within the business. So have you learned any lessons for how to acquire the right people?
Yeah, definitely. I made a lot of mistakes on that over the years. You know, Bespoke had over 100 people working in the company, but by the time I sold it, at one point I went up to around about 150, 160 across all of my businesses, and now I'm down to 16, and I'm still making a decent level of income. So yeah, in terms of what I've learned, I learned from a lot of mistakes, recruiting the wrong people because I just like the person. You've got to recruit on skill set. You've got to bring people in that have a different skill set to you. You've got to obviously like them in like the personality wise, and they've got to be able to gel with you, because I think that's important. They've got to be able to take instructions and take orders effectively. And it is a challenge. Staff is probably the hardest part about any business. But I think any sort of high performing entrepreneur that's got loads and loads of stuff going on, I think a non-negotiable is a PA. And I think a non-negotiable is probably someone in accounts, because if you've got multiple companies, like, you need to know your numbers, you need to be on top of your P&Ls, you need management accounting, you need all of that for sure, because you don't want to be sitting on zero, messing around, logging invoices and reconciling things. I mean, it's just a waste of time. There's the famous phrase, you know, fire quick and hire slow and all of those type things. And they do apply in the real world. But I think one thing actually that I do is, I don't know if you've seen this before, I think it's an action coach training session that I know Kevin kind of knows, Brad and stuff. But the high fun, high skill matrix is like a plus, isn't it? Where you work out everything that you do on a day to day, things that are high fun and low fun, and things that are high profit and low profit. And you should really, as the business owner, as the entrepreneur, should just be focusing on high fun, high profit, because everything else can be delegated. So once you work that out, what you want to be doing and what makes the money, you can then work out what team members you need to delegate stuff to. And growth is not always the answer. More staff is not always the answer, is also something that I've learned. Because I used to just be like, more staff, let's build. And that's, sometimes you can cause yourself a lot of problems. So that's not always the answer either.
No, those are good tips. And, in order for most people listening to this, Terry, they'll be on a path towards either financial security, so making sure they've got enough coming in to cover the essential outgoings every month. But once they've achieved that, then it's on to financial independence, to have enough money to really live a lifestyle of their choice without compromise. And recurring income, how important has that been to you when you've been looking at businesses or deals to make sure that there is that high degree of income?
Yeah, I mean, recurring income's fantastic. That's, if you're looking to acquire businesses, or you can get a recurring income from your business, then that's a great thing, because it steadies the ship. It takes the pressure off a little bit. If you look to sell it, it's obviously more valuable if it's got recurring income. I think that's almost a must. If your industry in the business that you're involved in can generate that type of thing through a membership or through some sort of service or product that they pay for each month, then that's great. That's why I love property. Property is recurring. It's not passive. Let's be truly honest about it. It's not really passive. Some strategies are more passive than others. But yeah, that's why I like property, because I've got my business income that's flying in, which a lot of the time is I've got to do stuff for it through me and the team, invest the profits into property, which ticks along and then produces some recurring income. But yeah, I'd highly recommend that for anybody wanting a good quality of life. if you can get recurring income, it just makes your life a little bit easier, I think, takes the pressure off a bit. And, who doesn't want to get paid for minimal work, right? That's surely what everybody deep down wants.
So we've heard a bit about the businesses, Terry, and I know we're scratching the surface because there's so much more we could be talking about with your various businesses. But moving on more to look at how you balance the family side of things, and also to understand a bit more and get to know who are the members of your family. I mentioned your partner, Louise, and she's also very entrepreneurial, isn't she?
Yeah. That's another factor that sort of would go against traditional thinking of me not being able to do all the things that I do. She's got an estate agent and a letting agent, and she's got property, and she's obviously a mum, and she's a partner to me. So she's got lots of things ongoing as well. And again, it just shows that it can be done. You've got to be organised, you've got to be structured, you've got to be disciplined, and you've got to be on top of your health, I think, are the sort of overarching factors that you need to look after. Following on from what I said earlier about the structure, the Google Calendar, time blocking, and making sure I'm looking after my health and my mind. And then it's very much, I think, just being pretty ruthless with your time and being organised and structured and setting goals daily and making sure you're keeping on top of them and not wasting time on low value, low fun tasks. That's a key point for anybody because everyone's situation is different. So I think if you can do that, you're going to start to achieve more in the same amount of time that you've got. My PA does my emails once a day. Well, she monitors them daily, but I respond to my emails once a day. If it's urgent, she'll send us a WhatsApp. You need to reply to such and such. Because let's be honest, most emails can wait. So the only notifications that come through to my phone are my WhatsApp and phone calls, nothing else. And then in between my tasks, I'll only respond to them, unless I've got it in my hand, of course. So I think that's how to balance it, I think. And I suppose intention is a big thing here. You've got to want to spend time with your partner and want to spend time with your kids. Because if you don't want that, you won't do it. But a question that I would put to anybody thinking like that is, let's say if you've got £1 billion in the bank, once you've done the holidays and you bought the houses and you bought the cars, what are you going to do with that money? And it normally boils down to spending time with your partner, spending time with your friends and spend time with your family. So if that's what you do if money was no object, why don't you just do it now? There's a great book. I think it's the 7 regrets or the 10 regrets of the dying. I don't know if you've heard that book or read that book. And it's all about quite morbid, but they interview people in hospices and they were on the deathbed and nobody said, I wish I worked more. Most people said, I wish I spent more time with my partner. I wish I didn't do this. I wish I spent more time with the children or spent more time with friends. So it's all going to come to us. Why don't you act that way now and still spend time with your family and your partner and your kids as well as earning money?
Just really moving on to the children now, Terry, because they range in age, don't they? From, I think, 11 down to 1. Obviously, baby Hunter, who's the most recent addition to the family. Tell us about your 4 children there, Terry.
Yeah, so a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 7-year-old and a 1-year-old. So 3 boys, 1 girl. So I've got my hands full. The girl is very sassy and very coming into teenage years where she's doesn't want to cuddle dad anymore or any of that. But they're a challenge, man. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's hard. It is hard, man. And I think anybody who's a parent can relate to that. It is very hard. Christmas, we had all the kids. It was chaos. We're taking them on holiday. It's chaos. But somebody said, I heard a lady say this at an event I was at, and I think she had a couple of kids, and she said a phrase that always stuck with us, and I've used it myself a few times since, which was, kids aren't the reason why I can't do this. Because a lot of people say that, I can't do that business because I've got kids, or I can't buy that many property because I've got kids. They're the reason why I will do this. And that always stuck with us because you could look at children as your fire and your reason why you're going to make loads of money and do all these businesses and set yourself up for whatever type of future that you want. Or you can look at them as a hindrance. They are part of my reason why I'm pushing so hard and growing the businesses and making money so I can give them a life that I never had. But I don't even want to gift them anything. I want to make them work for it.
So Terry, you're 35 years old now. You had your first child, Ellie, when you were 24, and you started your first business when you were 19. So, still a young man now, but, really young at the beginning when you had to manage all of this. And, when Ellie, obviously your first child, was there a time when it really hit home that your ambitions when you were 19, starting up your first business, and then suddenly you're holding your first baby? How did it change things for you in terms of your mindset?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I went like self-employed when I was 19. So I was like a sole trader. Then my first like limited company was Bespoke, which is when I was 24. It was actually just before she was born, or maybe 6 months-ish before she was born. Maybe it was something like, I remember being a similar time that I had Ellie and set up my first business. And I was very, very focused at that time. It's quite a few years back. I was very, very focused on money and success at that point. And I did neglect the family a little bit at that point because I was so focused on in the pursuit of money and success. And I do regret that a little bit, just being honest. But, I learned from it. And as I've had more children, I've realized that I don't want to miss out on stuff again. And I am definitely different as a dad now than I was back then. But I'll always remember the first time she called us dad. That was like, I was like, wow, I'm a dad. So it wasn't necessarily when she was born. Obviously, that was amazing. And the first time she opened her eyes and looked at us, I was like, my God, it's not just about me anymore. I've got someone to look after. But it was when she was about one-ish when she called us dad and looking at us, and she associated the word dad with me. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, I've got to provide now. So that was a real turning point for me, I remember specifically.
And then your first son came along. Didn't you have another sale going through at that time? So it was another busy period.
Yeah, when Theo was born, I was selling the Mortgage Genie. So that was a really stressful time. So then I was like, when she was pregnant, my ex-partner was pregnant, I was like, this time I'm going to be more available. I'm going to be more around in all of this. And that didn't happen really because I had a big sale going through. That was the first time I sold a company. Really stressful. Because it's not an enjoyable process, by the way. The negotiation and the waiting and the legal fees is not enjoyable. So I had all that ongoing. And then fast forward to recently when I had Hunter, my youngest, who's 1.5 now. I'm much more like every night I'm home, I put him to bed. Almost every morning when I'm home, I take him to nursery and was kind of split the pickups. But I'm much more available and I'm much more present with him, which I'm glad that I'm getting the opportunity to do. Maybe if I was stuck in growth mode, I might not have had an opportunity to do that.
And that's obviously the financial position that you find yourself in now, Terry, that gives you that time freedom that allows you to do that, isn't it? So it's only through the hard work that's preceded that allows you now to be able to do that with Hunter.
Definitely, if I was in the financial position, if I wasn't in the financial position I'm in, or if I was just stuck in, like I say, entrepreneurial, grow, build mode, I maybe would have missed it. So maybe that's a lesson for any listeners. Maybe you're currently in that mode of build, grow, as much money, as much growth as possible, but you're neglecting stuff at home. If you can, I would advise it. I'm certainly glad that I've done it, is just spend more time with them, because they're only young once. Most people have heard someone who's typically a bit older than them say that to them, right? Where they say, you don't want to miss out, it goes too quick. The growth really, everyone's heard them phrases, and it is true. I'm lucky enough to have a sort of fourth go, you could say, a fourth bite at the cherry, you could say, and make sure that I'm there. Yeah, hopefully someone listening to that might just realise, you know what, I should be spending a bit more time with the family and do it.
So I'm keen to hear, Terry, some of the things that you're doing with children to help, I guess, share some of this entrepreneurial knowledge and see how they're picking up on it and how you're involving them, where you're having these conversations about money. But just before that, what was your experience as a child growing up with your relationship with money and finance? Did you have a financial role model in your life?
No, I've been asked this question before. So we didn't have any money growing up. I grew up in Throckley, Newcastle upon Tyne, if anyone knows where that is, in a block of flats, which wasn't the nicest area until I was about 10-ish. But no, I had no money growing up. And then my mum set up a business, started to do well. We moved out of the flat, and then she lost it all. So I'd kind of experienced nothing, something, and then nothing. And I think that sparked my interest in money and business, and I wanted to protect myself, so that never happened to me. And so I think where property came in, but no role models, no first real person I ever listened to speak about money was Brian Tracy when I was 19. And that just, that was a switch in my brain. That was like, wow, there's something else here to this world. But yeah, in terms of what I'm doing with the kids, I know I spoke about this previous to this call. It's a hard one, right? That's why I love what you guys are doing, because nobody's really saying this is what you should do and this will result in this, because nobody really knows. Because you could teach your kids certain things, but they still might not turn out very well. So it's kind of a hard one. And I think you can only do what you think. And I think that's why this Wealth Builder for Families thing is so good. And why I want to endorse it is because if you guys, we are, however it's structured, can come up with do this, and you've got a strong chance that your children are going to be financially sound or good with money, I think that would be an amazing thing if you could come up with that. But the things that I'm doing are, so when we go to the hotel, I take my kids there once or twice a month. And when I first started to take them there, because they love it, it's like Dad's hotel and they run around and they speak to everyone. They think it's great. But then the first few times they were there, I watched them. Obviously, there's a restaurant there, so they were ordering what they want on the menu, and they're ordering loads of stuff. And my daughter saying, I want steak and prawns and all this. And I'm like, she's 10. And then she was getting the food, eating the food and all this. It always says thank you and stuff, which is important. But then it started to become like, I want this, and this. And I was a bit like, no, I can't have this. You don't just expect it. I said, I'm still paying for this food. I still pay the bill. Even though it's my business, I still pay money into the business. I went, you can't just take this for granted. So I tell you what, you're going to wash the dishes after this. And I went, yeah, you're washing the dishes. So I made them go into the kitchen, put the pennies on. I've actually got a picture somewhere. Put the pennies on, and I made them wash the dishes. And they were whinging on, why do I have to do this and all this? So I was just trying to explain to them, like I didn't have this when I was your age. And the reason why you have to do the dishes is you have to work for things that you want. So if you want to come here and enjoy yourself and run around and play and whatever, and you want to eat food for free, you need to understand that doesn't happen in real life. You need to work for things that you want. So I do that. Well, I'm actually I only decided this last week, but at the Ancient Unicorn, where we're going to do the tour at the hotel, we're going to do a car boot sale once every month. And this is what the team came up with at the Unicorn, just to get more people in the door, because there's land at the back so people can put the stalls up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the kids go, and I'm going to make them sell the toys. And I'm going to say to them, we'll go halfies on the money, because I bought them in the first place. So if you want to sell them, I want you to learn how to speak to people, and you can have half the money. So I'm going to do that with them. I've never done that before. I don't know how it'll go. What one thing that Louise does actually with my stepson, which is Jude, every night when he goes to bed, she makes him write a gratitude list. And on that list, so what are you grateful for? Going here to this place, or mum and dad spending this much money on us, or going to this place, having this for tea, and just getting them into that state of gratitude, I think, has got to have a positive impact on kids. Because if they understand and they are grateful for the things that they've got, they should attract more, and they should value stuff more. Little things like the pocket money, I try not to spoil them. They've always got to say please and thank you. And generally, if they want something, I'm trying to make them do something to get whatever they want. A task, or tidying the bedroom or something like that. And that's all I'm kind of doing. Who knows what the right answer is? But one thing I know is not the right answer is to spoil them and to gift them everything. I really believe that that's one of the downsides of becoming wealthy, is because they expect things, don't they? And they kind of, they get used to a certain quality of life, don't they? Used to going certain places. And if they just then expect that, then they could become one of these entitled brats, couldn't they? And want to live off mum and dad for the rest of their life. So that's certainly my view in it. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But that's my view anyway.
And children growing up in the digital age that we are now, Terry, often parents worry that they don't understand the true value of money because they don't actually see it. Everything's just tap, tap, tap. So are you using cash? Are you giving them pocket money in coins and tangible assets?
Yeah, so they've all got a little safe, just from Argos, wherever it was from, with a little code. So the pocket money that they get in cash, they put in the little safe. And I encourage them. So if we're going somewhere, I'll say, well, do you want to take some of your pocket money if you want to buy something? Sometimes they'll say yes, sometimes they'll say no. Or sometimes we'll go somewhere and they'll be like, oh, well, I want that toy, but it's 50 quid. And I'm like, well, yeah, you've only bought 30. So I'll give you the 20 if you give me the 20 back out your save. Or do you want to save up, or do you not want to get it? And try and get them to understand that they can't just have everything. I play Monopoly with them. I play the kids Monopoly. They seem to like that. I'm very competitive and I don't let them win ever. And I won't change that because I'm too competitive. But I also think that's important to, like, why should they win? Why should they win? If they win legitimately, that's fair enough, but I'm not going to let them win. I don't think that's right. People don't do that in business, do they? Oh, he has a property. Nobody does that, do they? Or he has this business, or, you know, he has a few. Nobody does that. So why would you do it in the game of life if they don't do it in real life? So yeah, that's what I do anyway.
Yeah. And in terms of the education system, growing up yourself and now seeing your children going through the schooling system, are you seeing any signs of these conversations, any kind of learnings around money? Do they come home and say, oh, we talked about this today?
Unfortunately, no. You know, the school system is, I don't want to get myself in trouble by saying anything too bad about the school system, but I think it's flawed in many ways. I don't know why they don't teach this. I've seen you are involved in like a petition to try and get them to talk about it at schools, and I don't think it'll ever come in, unfortunately. So I think it's down to us as parents to educate them. They've came back a few times from school and said things like, I'm going to start selling sweets, or I'm going to start doing this, I'm going to start doing that. Whether that came from a conversation at school or something that they've seen on YouTube or who knows. I don't think it's ever going to be taught in schools properly, unfortunately. And I haven't really seen any entrepreneurial flair in them yet. My daughter draws quite a bit. So I've said to her a couple of times, why don't you try and sell these drawings on eBay? Why don't you try and sell them? She's like, yeah, can we? I'm like, yeah, well, work out how to do it and then let us know. And she doesn't. So, because I don't want to just say, right, well, I'll do it for you, because then she needs to be proactive. So, that's the only thing I've seen. But I think they're young. Hopefully, as they get older, they start to get a bit of what I've got. But if they don't, as long as they're still happy at the end of the day, they don't have to be entrepreneurs. I'm happy if they're happy, as long as they're happy and content and they understand the value of money. I would love them to get into business. And I'd love them to become more successful than me, because I do think that's something. I think you should be more successful than your parents. And I think because you can pass down your lessons, can't you? So they can fast track the mistakes by getting your knowledge and your lessons. So I'd hope all of my kids become more successful than me, and then their kids become more successful than them. But you can't control it, can you?
No. And maybe that's a nice point for us to round things off there, is that idea of sort of compounding knowledge and compounding lessons through the generations, right? And as you say, you would hope that a little bit more rubs off every generation. Ties in with one of our principles that we're teaching around family wealth, of this principle of planting seeds, of delayed gratification, and, you know, children understanding that in this age of everything just seeming to be instant and at the touch of a button, that when it comes to building wealth, that's not always the case, right? You have to plant seeds and you have to appreciate hard work comes before results.
100% it does. 100%. And that is a worry. Let's be honest. If you watch young kids on TikTok, I mean, it's quite scary that literally their attention span is like milliseconds like this. And like, so what are they going to be like? You know, are they going to be able to keep their attention on growing wealth over a space of 5 years when they can't look at a video for longer than half a second? Like, who knows what the technology is doing to them? Again, I think it falls back to the parents. You can limit time on iPads. You can limit time on YouTube. Can you imagine if most of the population, this new generation, have these really poor attention spans and they don't value things? They're all entitled. They're all soft. They all want everything yesterday. If the generation becomes like that, if your son or daughter is above that in terms of switched on to things, they're going to be so far ahead. Because I do think most of the generation, unfortunately, are going to be into that first sort of category of low attention span, value, you know, want everything for nothing. So if your son or daughter can become a bit of a killer, then a bit of a savage, then what they're going to do, man, they're going to smash it, man.
My final question for you, Terry, you talked about setting goals and intentions every day. How far ahead do you plan? So within the next 5 years, do you already have that mapped out in your head of where you want to be?
So every year I do a gym run goal setting exercise where you identify 1, 3, 5 and 10 years. Now, the 10-year one moves all the time because it's quite a big thing, isn't it? Normally each year it's kind of different or there's different things on there. But 1 year I'm bulletproof on exactly what I want 1 year. 3 year I'm probably 80%. I know exactly what I want to achieve. 5 years probably 60, 70%. Because I think goals are always changing that much. And I think they should always be evolving. But I'm pretty clear on what I want for each business. Pretty clear what I want personally. And yeah, within 10 years, I say that I don't want to be working as much as I am now, but who knows? I probably 10 years ago, at 25, I probably said, I'll be retired by 35 sitting on the beach, and I'm not. So yeah, but I think that is an important point. I do think you've got to have short-term goals and your KPIs that are weekly and daily, but longer-term goals, if they're exciting and juicy enough, I think it'll keep you more focused than the day-to-day as well. Like if you've got an overarching like big reason why over here, I think that'll keep you more focused as in the short term as well.
So thanks so much for sharing everything about your family with us today, Terry, with how you're managing your time, how you're finding that balance between work and everything else you have going on in businesses. So congratulations on everything you've achieved so far, Terry. And we're looking forward to catching up with you in March and have a look around your hotel. So thanks again.
Sounds good. No, thank you for having us, man. I enjoyed it. Thanks, Christian.
Terry's always good value for money there, Kevin. He certainly wasn't short of ideas for us today.
Well, lots to unpack as always with Terry, and such an enthusiastic young man and a go-getter at every aspect in terms of how he works hard, plays hard and looks after himself as well. As you can tell, the health wealth thing came up loud and clear there. And yeah, all fair play to him.
Just before we go into some of the lessons from the conversation there with Terry, let's read out one of our latest reviews from Trustpilot. And it ties in actually with SSAS, which we've got our upcoming webinar taking place on Wednesday, the 21st of February. So do register for that. And the review, it's from Ju, J-U. And Ju says, setting up and running a SSAS presents a minefield to navigate, but WealthBuilders, along with their training, helped me not only understand a SSAS pension, but assisted with its creation via an administrator. And if you're looking to enter the world of SSAS pension and need educating, these are the guys to speak to.
Good to hear that from Ju. And we're pleased. We've helped thousands of property investors in particular, because property is an expensive asset. So turning pension money and certainly combining it for more and more buying power, very powerful way to be able to acquire property that otherwise would be left just simply unacquired and not part of your asset base.
Now, one of the things that we hear all the time, Kevin, when we're speaking to people about wealth building is a lack of time. And Terry, I think, has proven that if you put your mind to it, if you're efficient, if you've got some processes in your life, that you can juggle building a business, building a property portfolio, having a family, and still enjoying all of that as well. So we all have the same amount of time. We know this. We hear this a lot. So some good things. And for Terry, it all began in quite humble beginnings. He said he didn't have a financial role model necessarily, but the catalyst for him was listening to Brian Tracy. And he's gone on to achieve great things and still only age 35.
I think catalyst is an important word, Chris, which is the stimulation from moving an object of rest. You know, if something stays the same, stays flat, doesn't move, something needs to interrupt that pattern. And that can be a book, it could be a person, it could be an inspiration from any direction. And all I suggest is people become open to that, seek that first ROI. To recognize your one relationship, that's the R, opportunity, that's the O, an idea, that's the I, whether it comes in a book, a podcast, wherever it comes, seek it out and be curious, because once you make the decision to choose wealth and certainty over trading time for money and uncertainty, the world will move in your favor. So I just encourage, if Terry's your catalyst, act on it. If we are your catalyst, act on it. If your spouse or partner is your catalyst, act on it. If someone who died or got ill and you realize life is for living, act on it. Find a way to get a catalyst. Don't stay stuck thinking about wealth. Take some action.
And so much has happened in the last couple of years for Terry that he almost struggled to remember everything that he's been up to there with hotels and glamping sites and selling his business. And that was one aspect that was interesting, actually, selling a business that he very involved in every day for 9 years. And he talked about losing his identity and losing that team because he had over, he said, nearly 150 employees at its peak.
It's a difficult one. It's a one that can be helped by thinking about wealth building at the same time as building a business, because very often, and only a handful, less than 5,000 businesses a year are sold in the UK for more than £1 million, which would be a decent sum of money in anybody's book. But those who do, invariably the only asset that they built is the business. So when they do sell it, and more often than not, they sell it without recurring income, which therefore means it's less valuable and there are more strings attached to the sale because the acquirer doesn't know it's going to work for a while. So you're often tied in either as an employee or a consultant, where the deal is paid in 2 or 3 different stages, something up front, something in the interim, and something at some end point. Whereas the more you can create recurring income, the greater the stability of the business, and therefore you don't need these really long, challenging earn-out clauses because the predictability is in the recurring revenue, not in the work that somebody has to do to generate it because the business isn't dependent. So that's number one. The second point is if you're building wealth at the same time as building a business, so taking some of the profit, which is temporary, and turning it into an asset which is permanent, then when you do sell your business and you lose the identity of the business owner, you're now a business owner of the wealth of your whole family because you've got the experience of knowing what to do because you've been making investment decisions as you built your business rather than waiting till one day when all of a sudden you might feel very nervous, very uncomfortable, feeling like a newbie when in the past you were absolutely the expert.
And that leads nicely on to the final points Terry discussed about passing on the lessons to his children, 4 children there. And important for Terry that they are not entitled, they're not spoiled, really passing on that value of you must work for what you want. Did some interesting things in terms of when they're selling toys, making sure they split the money because he's the one who bought the toys, but also talking about that keeping money tangible. And I love the idea of them all having their own little safe and taking that.
I love that. Never heard that one before. Everybody's parenting style and views about pocket money, working for money is different, right? We're not saying, and Terry certainly wasn't saying he was right. In fact, he said nobody knows what's right, and he's absolutely correct in that. Because you don't know what's right, you do what you think is right, but be open to ideas that come from other people, which could be, oh, wow, now I know that. That's a good idea. I'll use that. And that's the benefit of community, which is why so many of our parents are sharing the lessons they're learning or absorbing from others. And I love the safe idea. I think it's a really cool idea to imagine a kid having a little safe with their money in, and it feels precious. And I think that could change the nature of the relationship with money. Not altogether sure I agreed with some of those things personally, but hey, that's the whole point about that, getting kids to do the dishes. Well, I'm not sure, but maybe it was more tongue-in-cheek than absolutely having to work for it. But you can never really tell because it's only a snapshot of a conversation.
Absolutely. Well, reminder again that Terry will be doing a site visit in conjunction with WealthBuilders on the 6th of March. And if you'd like to find out details of how you can attend, that'll be up in the Northeast, then head to wealthbuilders.co.uk/events. And for WealthBuilder members, there will be discounts on those tickets as well. All right. So that wraps up another episode. Thanks again to Terry for sharing all those insights. And Kevin, you and I will be back same time, same place next week.
We will, my friend. Until then, see ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the WealthBuilders membership site to help you create, build and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.